Now that we're all getting back on the road, it's important that all you State Farm policyholders break out your policies and take a second look. Recently, I've had a few situations come up that have brought my attention to something that State Farm doesn't want you to know about. In the state of Florida, you're only required to have a bare minimum amount of coverage, and it's only certain types of coverage. So there's a lot of folks on the road today that don't have insurance or they don't have enough insurance. So what happens if you're hit by one of those folks? If they don't have bodily injury coverage, you could be out of luck when it comes to finding compensation for your injuries. That's the importance of uninsured motorist coverage. It fills in the gap. Before I go into it anymore, let me give you a brief breakdown of how uninsured motorist coverage works and what it is. Uninsured motorist coverage is there to fill in the gaps if the person who hits you doesn't have adequate coverage or doesn't have coverage at all. Now, in the state of Florida, you're only required to have bare minimum coverage. So there's a lot of instances where uninsured motorist coverage would be applicable. For example, if you have $10,000 worth of uninsured motorist coverage, you could either have that coverage stacked or non-stacked. Traditionally, how stacked coverage works is if you've got, let's say, 5 vehicles in your household and you have stacked coverage on one vehicle, that $10,000 in coverage would be multiplied by 5. So you would in turn have $50,000 worth of coverage. Now, non-stacked coverage, for example, would be you've got $10,000 worth of uninsured motorist coverage and it's not multiplied by the amount of vehicles in the household, so you have $10,000 available to you if you get in an accident. Now, here's what State Farm's doing with their uninsured motorist policies. Let's say you've got your household and it has 5 vehicles in it. You get stacked coverage on one of those vehicles. You would assume that you would have stacked coverage, and for my example, you would have $50,000 worth of coverage. Well, the way State Farm structures their policies is they set up individual policies for every vehicle within the household. So if you have stacked coverage on one vehicle and non-stacked coverage on the rest, traditionally, you would have $50,000 if you were in an accident in that vehicle. But because of the way State Farm does it with separate policies, that stack coverage you bought and paid for does not actually stack. And here's why it's a little tricky. Because most folks, even the knowledgeable ones who know what stacked coverage is, don't realize that that's how State Farm structures their policies. Hell, I realize a lot of times the insurance broker doesn't even know that's how they structure their policies. I've run into it way too often in the last couple weeks to not make this video. So the reason I'm making it today is so you don't fall victim to their scheme. I want you to go out, check out your policy, talk to your broker, and figure out whether or not this is the circumstance you're in.